Welcome to Chaotic Riff Magazine. We can be found on the web at www.chaoticriff.com. My name is Jason J. Rock Houston. We're speaking with Renaissance Rock Orchestra founder, composer, and keyboard player, Gregg Fox. Now, Gregg, a lot of people may or may not know who you are, but I'll tell you, I reached out to you because I started seeing a lot of posts about this Renaissance Rock Orchestra project, and we're going to talk a lot about that. And I tell you, just based on the photos and the videos I was seeing up on Facebook, I'm like, man, this looks like like a great rock show that I would want to go see. And
yes,
and this is one of those bands that
see for sure.
This is one of those bands I would kind of point to, even though you're relatively new, and say, a lot of people out there. In fact, you and me were having this conversation the other day online, kind of chatting when I'd reached out to you about doing the interview, and I was saying, I've heard a lot through my life that keyboards suck and they don't belong in rock music, and like I was kind of saying to you is, you listen to any of those classic Deep Purple albums and what John Lord did, and you tell me keyboards don't belong in rock music, and this is further proof of that. What you're doing now. So talk a little bit about the Renaissance Rock Orchestra and how this thing got launched.
Oh yeah. Well, thank you very much, Jason. It's nice to be here, and hello to all your listeners out there from Renaissance Rock Orchestra. This is a project that I've been working on for actually many years now.
Oh, wow.
I'm a Seattle boy.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of raised in the whole Seattle circuit, did the whole club scene there, and ended up playing with a lot of musicians in from the band Hearts and Queensryche. Did a lot of work with a lot of those cats, and they've continued on to do a lot of work with me on numerous of our songs for Renaissance Rock Orchestra. We have 3 releases out now with our brand new release, A Song of Hope 2020. And some of those guys from Seattle you'll hear on my records, Howard Leese from Heart, who is, of course, also in Paul Rogers and a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee. And also I have Scott Rockenfield from Queensryche on our records, too. So a lot of my Seattle roots you'll find here. But, I started, I was living in Phoenix. I left Seattle and I moved to Phoenix for seveal years, and I kind of thought rock was dead.
Wow.
But I ended up getting in a really fantastic cover band in Phoenix called Superhero, and it was just an amazing band. I did that for several years, but it just felt like there was that rock was dead, nothing was going on. So I bought a sailboat, and I sailed around the Bahamas for 7 years.
Wow, what a life.
And that really, it was an incredible bucket list kind of thing most people just dream of and never have a chance to do, but I did it. It was absolutely amazing. But I didn't have a keyboard on the boat, so I wasn't writing, I wasn't playing, but that experience of being out there just with Mother Nature and the ocean and the hurricanes and diving every day, it was just an amazing experience, and it changed me.
Now, a lot of people, get their start in, playing in bands, doing the cover thing, and that's really a great way to kind of, hone your craft. And, people think, you're playing other people's music, but, they're tunes that we've all heard and loved. And, especially if you're just kind of learning how to, play your instrument or sing or whatever the case may be. It's good to kind of practice what came before you. Then once you get to that point of, it's time to do my own original thing.
Learn from the masters. You're really learning from the masters when you do cover material.
And in your case, I'm sure,
songwriters.
In your case, I'm sure, you were a Heart fan of that, and I mean, to grow up probably being a huge fan of Heart, and then getting to play with some of those guys. I mean, that had to be the ultimate dream come true for you.
Oh, yeah, it was a wonderful experience. I was in a band in Seattle with the original guitar player and original drummer from Heart, Roger Fisher and Mike DeRosier, who are both now in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, of course. And that band was primarily an original project. We were writing and recording a lot of originals, and had 2 different amazing vocalists from Seattle, Scott Rosberg, who was in a band called Stryker way back in the day that had a top 10 hit that did very well. And then we brought in a gal by the name of Carla Maylander, Carla Bowman originally, who just had an amazing voice. And it was a very, very exciting band, great material. We did covers too, and really controlled the entire Seattle market in a lot of ways for a number of years. But it was a great experience working with people that talented, that had so much experience in songwriting and recording, and of course I definitely honed my craft a lot working with those guys in Heart, so that was a wonderful thing. But back to the sailboat thing. You know, when I decided that I just missed music too much and it was time to get off the sailboat, I actually got off the sailboat and I moved to Venice Beach, California.
Oh, wow.
And I was living right on the Grand Canal. It was this multi-million-dollar house. It was great experience. And literally within 3 months of being in, I think it was even less than that, within 3 months of living in Venice Beach, I was asked to go on tour with Foreigner.
Oh, wow.
So I was meeting people out in LA, and, you know, I never lived in LA, so I didn't have a lot of LA connections. But, you know, just from my experiences with the Heart people and the Queensryche people up in Seattle, you know, people were sort of a little bit drawn to me, and I was the new guy in town. So some great things happened. Now, I never did go out on tour with Foreigner at that point in time. They ended up bringing in a friend who was able to walk in and use all the old Foreigner patches from the old keyboard player. But I spent weeks and weeks programming that material, and they actually told me, wow, this sounds absolutely amazing. It sounds better than the original tracks, like the intro for Waiting for a Girl Like You, for instance, which is a very complex sonic keyboard sound. And that's one of the things that I really pride myself is, you know, I'm a Korg endorsed keyboardist, and I've been working on Korg synthesizers since the 80s, and so I have years and years of practice in programming sounds, and that's kind of my thing. You know, I try to make sure that my sounds are state-of-the-art sounds that nobody else can accomplish, and I do that with my Korg keyboards. And a lot of programming. It takes a lot, hours and hours, days and days sometimes. When I programmed that one sound for Waiting for a Girl Like You, that took me 3 weeks to literally program that sound so that I was happy with it. When I go out here in Vegas, I have a really awesome all-star Led Zeppelin band called the Moby Dicks that includes the drummer from Whitesnake and Foreigner.
Yeah, I want to talk about that because, you know, I seen, I don't know if you were in the band at the time, because it's maybe about maybe 5 or 6 years ago when I saw the band, and at some club in Hollywood. But I tell you, Brian Tishy, the drummer you're talking about, he's one of the most talented guys, and he's the one that kind of, I think, put it together for NAMM one year, and they've been doing it ever sinse. And he has different guys.
We also have a show called Bonzo Bash that Brian owns.
Yeah.
Is the founder of, and it's so amazing. I've done Bonzo Bash many times, not only at the NAMM show out in California and Anaheim, but also here at Vamped in Las Vegas. And it's so amazing because I get to play with all the best drummers in the world, because we bring in all these great drummers here from Korn. It just goes on and on and on, and to play all these Zeppelin songs, you know, because it's obviously all about John Bonham and Bonzo material. And what an amazing experience that is. But also, we have another show that Brian put together called Randy Rhoads Remembered that we do out at the NAMM show in Anaheim and here in Las Vegas. And in that show, I get to play with some of the best guitar players in the world. You know, Bumblefoot from Guns N' Roses, Doug Aldridge, and it just goes on and on. And so doing things like that has allowed me to have a really incredible pool of artists to draw from to do the Renaissance Rock Orchestra records. We have 3 records now, and our last record, we literally had 27 rock stars on it. Guys from everything from ACDC to Slash to Yes, to Guns N' Roses, to Robin McCauley from McCauley Schenker Group, and who still tours with Michael Schenker a lot. So it's a really great way to develop these relationships with artists and bring them into the Renaissance Rock Orchestra, which is basically a revolving door of well-known rock stars. So that's kind of the whole concept of what Renaissance Rock Orchestra is. Very much like
Whitesnake. I mean, Coverdale's been probably the mainstay in Whitesnake all these years, but he's got a great cast of people that come in and out of the band over the years, and and you can't go wrong. You know, Brian Tishy, I got to tell you, amazing drummer, amazing musicians. A lot of people know him as a drummer, but maybe very interested to know. Talented singer, plays the guitar.
He's a guitar player too. He loves to play guitar. He'd really love to be a guitar player if he had his choice, but he's so well known and he's so far above everyone else as a drummer that he's kind of stuck being a drummer. I'll tell you, I think Brian's the best drummer.
Yeah, and you know,
in my opinion, and I've played with many of the best drummers in the world, including Michael DeRozier from Heart and John Rockenfield from Queensryche. But every time I'm on stage with them, it just blows the crowd away. It blows me away, and I'm so happy to have him in the Renaissance Rock Orchestra in our show and on all our records.
And you know, if anybody knows anything about these events you're talking about, you know, Randy Rhoads Remembered and Bonzo Bash. Brian is such a great drummer, but he could have probably made the event around him and having these guest musicians come in, which he does. But
Sure.
he does not have the kind of ego where, well, I'm going to just be the only drummer in the band, playing all night. He brings in other talented drummers, and I think that's what makes those shows that much
absolutely
better, because he's showcasing the talent.
One drummer after another, after another. Yeah, it's awesome. Really, really awesome shows. Yeah, and he's such a huge Bonham fan. I mean, he studies Bonham so intimately. He knows all the material so well, and the history of all the songs. There's not one question you could ask Brian about Led Zeppelin or about Bonham that he couldn't answer, and it includes everything about the kits that Bonham played on, the sizes of the drums, the way they were recorded, the timings in the songs. He's really a master of John Bonham.
Oh yeah, I mean, I interviewed him about that, and he was telling me that even get down to him watching like old video clips of Bonham and like how he would perform on stage and how he'd hold the sticks and everything down. And another event they were having out here for several years, I think Brian didn't have anything to do with it, but I think it was based on these events that he put together. They started having, after Ronnie Montrose committed suicide, they started having this Ronnie Montrose Remembered. And I tell you, Montrose started getting all this love, even more, I think, than he got during his lifetime. And people really started digging into some of the music. And I think when they put together some of these events, they're really special things,
Very, very special, very fun. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Side note, my agent here in Las Vegas, Brian Towers from BT Entertainment, actually used to be Ronnie's manager for several years.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
And Greg, I also want to talk get a little deep into your story, because I was reading on your official webpage, GreggFox.com, that you started playing the piano at the young age of 5 now. Talk a little bit about that, because it's very young. Your parents kind of put you up to it? Was it something you kind of became interested in on your own?
I come from a very, very musical family.
Oh, wow.
A very church-oriented family. I was raised in the church. Mom and Dad actually wanted me to become a minister, and I actually went to Seattle Pacific University. And so, anyway, I ended up going the rock star musician route because of my love for music. But my mom was the organist in church. My dad was the choir director in church. My sister and I were singing when I was 5 and she was 3. This Little Light of Mine. We sang that in church. Somewhere I have a recording of that somewhere. I'd love to use it on a record sometime. But so we had a piano in the house. There was music all the time. Of course, as we grew older, that switched to ukuleles, then to guitars.
And violin, I understand.
Violin also, that's right. I just loved the sound of orchestras and symphonies as I started to grow up a little bit. And when you go into school, in elementary school, you have a choice of either going into band or going into orchestra. And I was fascinated with the sound of symphonies. And when I heard the orchestras play, I just loved that sound. And that permeates all my music to this day. I have string tracks and live string tracks on every song that we do. And my ultimate vision for the Renaissance Rock Orchestra is to have a full orchestra, whether we're on tour or whether we have a residency here in Las Vegas, that it will be a full orchestra doing symphonic renditions of epic rock hits, which is what we do now, along with our own material, a lot of Renaissance Rock Orchestra material too. And of course, my goal is that ultimately at some point, the classics will always be the classics, and they're so important, and people will always love them so much. And so to do a huge symphonic version of whether it's Kashmir or Stairway to Heaven or Bohemian Rhapsody, whatever it might be, that's something audiences are always going to love to hear, and they're going to be drawn to. So since Las Vegas, of course, draws people from all over the world, I want them to hear those classic rock hits, to keep the history of rock alive by doing that. But we will, as things go on, we will be doing more and more Renaissance Rock Orchestra material. And of course, at this point, we have 3 records to draw from. But I have about 3 or 4 records that are written, not necessarily in the can, but that are partially in the can. So, there'll be a lot of Renaissance Rock Orchestra records coming out in the next few years.
Here's the question, Greg. I mean, you guys got 3 albums out. Wow, I can't believe it. And my next question is, how the hell have I not heard about this until now? I mean, I mean,
well, it's really hard to get traction with an unbranded, unknown act. How do you go about it?
Yeah.
We all know how difficult it is to gain millions of followers on YouTube or Instagram or whatever it is. So it's very difficult anymore to get out there. And the same thing with Spotify. Yes, we're on Spotify. How many listeners do we have?
Yeah.
Not nearly enough. So please spread the word. But it's a very, very slow process and a lot of work. And, of course, I'm trying to develop relationships with different types of record labels that I think will bring their existing audiences into the fold, so that we can meet just instantly, be on their websites and all their social media and gain millions of followers for the Renaissance Rock Orchestra. So that's definitely where we're going.
Well, Greg, I like to, network with people in that and make contacts, which is basically what we've done here. And so I hope that this is the last interview you do with me. I like to keep in touch with folks and,
Absolutely.
And because there's so much that we could talk about. I don't think we get everything done in
There's no way. I could talk for about 8 hours. If you talk to anybody that I've done an interview with or a podcast, I could go on and on and on. I have had such an interesting life, and of course I have so much passion about the music that I write.
I bet. And I think one reason you're starting to kind of make some noise now with this is obviously is the Las Vegas show, because Las Vegas itself has been every place else has been shut down for the last year. So Las Vegas is starting to come back. People are starting to go see shows again, and then on top of that, you're starting to have name people like Tony Franklin and Brian Tichy and Mark Bowles in this. Well,
they've always been in the band. They've been on all the albums. Well, Tony has not been on an album yet, but Brian's been on every record.
But people hear about this show. I want to go see that in Las Vegas. Oh, Mark Bowles, he's played with Yngwie Malmsteen. He's played with Robin McCauley or whoever we're talking about. They bring their own little fan bases to this as well.
Absolutely. And that was my whole plan when I originally developed the template for the show. I originally developed the show when I first moved to Las Vegas. I left Venice Beach because my buddy Mikey Bones, who was my best friend and my bass player for many, many years, and who helped me co-found this band in the beginning. We did this together. Let's start a show called the Renaissance Rock Orchestra. Of course, I've always been the songwriter and the main founder of it, but Mikey, of course, was a huge part of the project, Mikey Bones. He passed away in 2017, so I'm carrying the torch for Mikey as we continue forward, and this thing does take over the world, as it becomes a huge force here in Las Vegas and gets a residency. What a great way to develop a show. At the show we had last week, it was so exciting to talk to people that have been following Renaissance Rock Orchestra for so many years that I didn't know were big fans. And, on Facebook and Instagram, most people like and they comment, etc. But I was talking to people that were buying meet and greet packages and after show packages from New York City that came in just to see the show with all these amazing players.
And were you selling CDs and merchandise at the show?
What's that?
Were you selling CDs and T-shirts and merchandise?
Absolutely.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, it was so exciting to do that show. And, the concept for Renaissance Rock Orchestra, as I mentioned before, is kind of a revolving door of amazing rock stars. Well-known artists from every band. And, like I said, our last record, which is called In Times of Olde, which you can hear on Spotify, that has 9 different drummers on it. It has Vinny Appice on it from Black Sabbath. It's got Brent Fitz from Alice Cooper and Slash. It has Simon Wright from ACDC, Brian Tichy, of course. It has Alan White from Yes.
Oh, wow.
So, 27 rock stars on that record. And so that's the concept of what Renaissance Rock Orchestra is. So for the live show, as this thing goes forward, we will always continue bringing in different artists, whether it's Robin Zander or Lou Gramm or
that'll
whoever.
Keep it fresh,
guitar players like Bumblefoot from Guns N' Roses. We want to bring in, one of my partners in developing a lot of the show is Michael James Romeo from Symphony X. Now, I write all the songs, but at some point I would love to do some co-writing with Michael, and I'm sure we will do that on some of our upcoming albums. Michael's considered to be one of the top 10 guitar players by Burn Magazine.
Oh, wow.
Top 10 metal guitar players in the world, and of course what he's done with Symphony X is just amazing.
Oh, yeah.
So working with him would be wonderful. And so I have this vision of having Bumblefoot and Michael James Romeo on stage together, and guitar players of that quality, wizards on the guitar of that quality. This would be a show like has never been seen before. I don't think there's ever been a show that has had guitar players that are such virtuosos, and so I think it'll be a groundbreaking.
So most of these guys that you've got involved in the show, like right now, are these guys that you know from work, being a working musician, or you just some of them just people you reach out to, and yeah, sure, I want to get involved, or.
They've all been on the records.
Okay.
Yeah, I brought them in on various records of our 3 records in the past, and they're all guys that I've done shows with here in Las Vegas, whether it's Bonzo Bash or the Rock Gods Hall of Fame or Randy Rhoads Remembered. I've done just so many things like that between the NAMM show and doing the
Moby Dick.
The Legends series show at NAMM to the David Harris production, where I performed with Nico and Alan White and John Payne from Asia. I just went out and did a show with John Payne's Asia here down at Phoenix with Alice Cooper and Lou Gramm, where I got to actually perform and play I Want to Know What Love Is for Lou Gramm.
Oh, wow.
And feels like the first time was pretty amazing. And to play those Asia songs was really quite a thrill as a keyboard player, because they're keyboard driven, not guitar driven. And to meet Alice Cooper, well, strangely enough, I had never met Alice before, and it was really nice to hang out with him and his wife.
Yeah, he's a super nice guy, and
such nice people.
Super talented too. I mean, if you've seen an Alice Cooper show ever, I mean, it's one of the great theatrical shows, and it's amazing that Alice can still do what he does. He's almost 70 years old.
I know. I love it. He's still out there rocking. And he has such a, he kind of considers what he does to be a bit of a ministry down there to the community in Phoenix. And so you have to really give him accolades.
And talk about Alice Cooper. I mean, a lot of people love his classic stuff, but he put out a great, fantastic new studio album, like 15 new tracks this year, called Detroit Stories.
Yeah, great, isn't it?
And I tell you, for a aging rocker like that to have a #1 album of all new music, it's amazing.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah, it's fantastic.
And Greg, I want to go back to earlier, talking a little more about your story. Like you're talking about, so I was curious, when you first start, you're learning from 5 years old, all these different instruments. And like you said, you came from a musical family. Now, like a lot of piano players, did you learn like classical music first? Like, learning,
absolutely.
And were you loving that right away? Like what was the point when you kind of started to get into rock music, or do you love it all?
I do love it all. Rock is certainly my main influence, but being a violinist, of course, I played so much classical music, and being a pianist, I played so much classical music. And
I love the fact that in this Renaissance Rock Orchestra, I hear you have different music. Like you do have a violin player or two.
Absolutely, yeah. At our first original showcase here in Las Vegas, I had a string quartet, which was nice. At this show, I decided to change things up a little bit and brought in just a really powerful solo violinist, Marlo Zamartis, who is just a monster, and she's just a real rocker and such a great performer. But so it was a little bit different twist on the Renaissance Rock Orchestra vision. But as it grows, I think as this thing grows, it's going to continue to change. I always want to have the solo violinist thing, because we had Marlo do a couple solos here and there, and I think that's a really awesome thing for somebody that is such a great violinist. But I also want to have the string quartet thing. I want to grow that into kind of a chamber orchestra thing as the show grows and we have a bigger budget to work with. And that's hard to say what's going to happen, because I've had great success bringing in financiers for this show. Pre-COVID, I was in the middle of a multi-million-dollar deal, and I thought we were going to take it right to one of the major casinos, but COVID killed that.
Yeah.
But now that we have this showcase under our belt, and so many investors came out from LA and from Las Vegas, I got to thank Joe Amato, the head of the Small Business Administration for Nevada, him and the Nomad Collective, an amazing event company that produces shows with Sammy Hagar and Pearl Jam, and they're also excited about this show. So I'm looking forward to the partnerships we're going to create with them and where we're going to go, because they want to take it right to a major.
I mean, I dare everybody go on your Facebook page or your official site or your YouTube page. Look at some of the videos. I mean, it's really made a fan out of me. Like I said, it looks like the ultimate rock show. And awesome. See, it would have been a great rock show if it was just you guys going in there with this great all-star band and doing a lot of great classic classic rock tunes that we all know and love. But I love the fact that you're doing that, but you're also putting in your own original music. That gives it really some legitimacy,
Absolutely.
you know?
Yeah, it was kind of, I was trying to decide what to do with this show and what I wanted to be. Now, of course, part of the reason we want to do a residency here in Las Vegas is because it's the fastest way to build a brand. You have people from all
word
over
of mouth.
coming to see the show.
Yeah.
And, touring is so expensive, and for an unbranded, unknown band to go out and try to do shows and tours is virtually impossible. So you have to build the brand and build the audience and the fan base for sure. And doing a residency here in Las Vegas is definitely the way to do that. And having 3 albums under our belt, we're a little bit different animal than anything else that there is here.
Yeah.
The other cover shows that exist, other rock shows that are here, that it's all tribute shows and cover shows. I mean, and I originally built this template around the Trans-Siberian Orchestra when I first moved to Las Vegas. I went out and saw Trans-Siberian. I was going, wow, I love the show. I love classical metal. I know I could do this.
Yeah.
I could do this. This is what we should do. So that was my first plan. Now, because they go out and they, make $90 million in 3 months during the Christmas season with their Christmas show.
Yeah.
I was thinking this was a genre, and it is a new genre that they kind of helped create. But I was thinking that investors would see that and go, wow, yeah, we need to get behind this and make it work. It's been a little tougher than I anticipated. So that's why at this point, of course, if you're going to have a show, you have to mix not only your own originals and that symphonic classical metal thing that I write into the show, but you have to give them these symphonic renditions of the monster epic classic rock
tunes.
Songs. So that you can draw the crowd and draw an audience and have a sustainable show.
Yeah, like I was having a discussion with somebody the other day about the band Queen, and I bring Queen up because a lot of your music, kind of like big rock sounds, reminds me of Queen songs. And
Thank you very much. Yeah, you'll definitely hear some of that Queen.
Like I could hear you doing like "We Are the Champions," "Somebody to Love," like you said, Bohemian Rhapsody.
At this show, it was so awesome. At this show, we did a symphonic version. We started with "We Will Rock You," and we went into "We Are the Champions."
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah, with the strings and some cool pizzicato stuff that Marlo was doing, and then we went right into Bohemian Rhapsody from the head-banging solo section out.
Wow. And
it was so powerful. Yeah, people really dug that. That's when they started to really cut loose and get crazy.
And see, that's why a rock show like this works. And I think, too, I bring up the band Queen because, as I was saying, I was having a discussion about this the other day with somebody. Like on the surface, you would never think you would be able to replace somebody like Freddie Mercury, and you really can't. But I think part of a reason, Brian May and Roger Taylor are allowed to still go out there, and I think the fans are pretty accepting. First of all, they get Adam Lambert. He's kind of like Freddie Mercury. He knows his place. He knows he's not. And the other thing is, those Queen songs, like maybe Whitesnake or Aerosmith, a couple of other bands. I think it's these songs are such a part of the soundtrack of our lives that we still want to hear these songs. And it's not like Freddie Mercury's still alive and they kicked him out of the band. He died and unfortunately he's no longer to be here. But those songs are so big to so many people that they want to continue to go to see them play. And
they're important songs. They're important songs. They've created what rock music is. Yeah, and they are a piece of our DNA. They're a part of our soundtrack of our life, as you mentioned. So it's really fun to be able to play those and to represent those to people in a very, very powerful way with an amazing band, with this symphonic arrangements. It's really, really powerful.
Like when I was announcing that I was going to interview you last week, Greg, I put up one of your videos on my site to kind of give people a taste of what you guys are about, and it was for the video Circus Life. I want to talk a little bit about that because
I'm so glad you brought that up because yes, if you're mentioning Queen, you have to mention that song.
That's why
Circus Life. I wrote that during COVID, and that whole new album, which is called A Song of Hope 2020, I'm releasing each one of the tracks on Spotify and all of the digital platforms, kind of one at a time, kind of interspersing them here and there. We have 3 tracks that are now released. The title track, A Song of Hope, I literally just launched here about 48 hours ago. I don't even think it's hit Spotify yet, but it'll be there soon. But yes, go listen to Circus Life, please, everyone.
I mean, it was like discovering Kiss for the first time. If you know what I mean.
Nice. Thank you so much. Wow, what a compliment.
I mean, in a sense, it's very visual. It's like got that big rock sound. If you look at the video visually, it's kind of like I describe it like kind of a psychotic like carnival. That's how it starts out. And it's just very visual. So talk about the video, because I mean, are these still shots that you kind of just put together, or what is it? Because
that's it. At this point, I've been wearing all the hats in Renaissance Rock Orchestra, and it's been so difficult to not only be the keyboardist, but to be the songwriter, the composer, the arranger, the producer, the PR person, the social media guy, the content creator, the YouTube man, the agent, the manager, the production manager, the stage manager, all of that is what Gregg Fox is to Renaissance Rock Orchestra, and it's just been such a difficult challenge to wear so many hats. So yeah, I produce these little videos at this point on my phone.
Wow.
And so I take still shots, and I've got to the point now that I actually...
Because again, I urge people to go check out the videos. I mean, very visual, very entertaining. It's almost art-like.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I think people have a more of an appreciation for what you do when they check out some of the videos. And I do hope there will be more, Greg, because it's just it's eye candy.
Thank you so much. Boy, I can't tell you how great that makes me feel, because I always feel a little sheepish about it, because I know we don't have great video production skills, but
well, it's amazing.
The last 2 years of working on iMovie on my phone, I've learned how to do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and now I'm starting to purchase content from existing moving video content from other places. But now that we're at this live performance stage, the whole idea is there's going to be a lot of live content from the ongoing show that we'll be creating videos with, and that we'll actually start to mix our live show content with storyboard content, where we'll actually be using the band members and going into a sound stage and creating storyline videos. So that, of course, that's where we're going.
And I think the more you go with this, I mean, the more you network with some of the players in the band and that are going to be appearing with you. Like, we were talking about Bonzo Bash and, Ronnie Montrose Remembered and all these great events they have out here in LA. And
Randy Rhoads Remembered,
Randy Rhoads Remembered. And anytime they have any of those shows, like, Brian Tichy, for example, and even people that he has performing at those shows, I mean, they also advertise the event on their websites, on their pages. They post clips from it. I think the more and more people start doing that and seeing, this Renaissance Rock Orchestra, they're going to want to go to the show. And I think that's what you need to start doing, posting more of the live videos, from the performance.
The plan. Yeah, we had a crew there for this show, of course, and so we're in the middle of creating that content right now from the show. So a lot of that will be released on our upcoming YouTube videos, and we'll have it on Instagram.
And were you having people like you typically do, like at the show, like, filming it themselves, like see those phones up in there?
Yeah. Absolutely. I've seen a little bit of that coming in here and there, which is nice, and I've been loving that too. So really, boy, just seeing the energy, the excitement of that crowd there was so phenomenal. It's not a gigantic room; it only holds about 168 people.
Wow!
But boy, that crowd was so responsive and so appreciative and so excited about seeing Renaissance Rock Orchestra, about seeing this show. People traveled from New York City, from Texas, from Connecticut. So many people from Phoenix, and so many people from LA, since it's so close to Vegas. People that I didn't even know were fans and followers, and I'm so appreciative to all of them.
I bet. And Greg, just talking to you, we're sitting here doing the interview. This just popped in my head. You've been doing this so long, and probably when you first started, performing live, all these years ago, in front of people, it went from like seeing people like with their lighters to now people hold their phones up in there. I mean, just technology.
It's a whole new world.
Yeah, it's a whole new world, and I mean,
I still miss the lighters.
Yeah, I mean,
I still miss the lighters, but we'd burn the place down.
Yeah, I mean, I'm old school too in the way that people listening to this might not know what I'm talking about when I say I miss the days of going to a record store. Yes, folks, I used to have these music stores where you could go and buy a CD, buy a cassette, buy vinyl. Vinyl's starting to make a comeback, but
yes.
That's
it's so different when you actually hold that product in your hand, and you're able to study the artwork and study the liner notes and learn about the band and the musicians in the band and about the songs. It just takes this music into a whole other world.
Yeah.
we're so interactive, and that's what we grew up on.
Yeah, like I had some guy tell me, I was having a discussion with, he was telling me, I got rid of all my vinyls, all my CD, all my music is on my phone now. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's cool.
That's not so cool. It's not so cool. Yeah, it's too bad that you can't
hold it in your hand.
Hold it in your hand. And be personal with it. Have it be a part of your reality of your physical existence. Yeah.
I still, like you said, I still collect CDs and stuff, and that's why. Like I want to get all 3 of your CDs, because just based on the videos and everything, I'm like, man, like I'm telling you.
I think you're really going to enjoy. Yeah, I'm so proud of this new record, A Song of Hope 2020. And if anybody does want to get a copy, since we actually don't have a record deal yet with physical distribution, we did just sign a wonderful, wonderful digital distribution deal with Curtain Call Records, and very, very excited about that. Thank you, John. And thank you, Gigi, over there at Curtain Call Records. Really excited about what's going to happen with that and where that could go. The great thing about Curtain Call Records is our first single, In My Love and Arms, will probably be released within the next week here. And that will hit 20 million listeners a week.
Wow.
All around the world. So that should be a pretty good little push. There could be a lot of people going to the YouTube, to the social media. It should start really growing in leaps and bounds. I can't wait for it to go viral.
Yeah. And I think you're very smart.
Start taking care of itself.
I think you're very smart launching this in Vegas, because it's interesting. Like you said, you lived all over the world, and I mean, like at one point, Seattle was like kind of where everything was happening in the early '90s. Grunge was big. I mean, for you, what was that like all of a sudden?
That was horrible for me. That was the time that I left Seattle.
Wow.
I'd been in, cover bands and working bands for years and years in Seattle, and original bands too, many original bands, including the band with Roger Fisher and Mike DeRozier, which was called 10 Bowls. But it did a lot of recording at Bad Animals recording studio,
oh, wow.
The Heart People, and before that it was K. Smith Studios, London Bridges. All these studios did a lot of work there. But at that point in Seattle, everything was grunge.
Yeah.
And there was no keyboards. There was no work for me as a keyboard player anymore. Queensryche was also going through the same kind of a thing where their popularity was starting to wane in the mid '90s, and there was just, for me as a keyboard player, nothing to go on.
Yeah, you must be amazed, like, at how Queensryche since that time has been able to kind of rebrand themselves, especially with the new lead singer and everything. They're more successful than ever.
Absolutely. Yeah, they've done very well, and Michael Wilton's a very good friend. Well, they're all friends.
Yeah.
Michael and I have seen each other. I had to take a couple trips up to Seattle to take care of my aging parents.
Oh, wow.
And on those trips, I was able to hang out with Michael a couple times, had a great time, and they're out doing a lot of great things now. And
that's why
guy Alex Raphael, who used to run sound for Metallica, Queensryche, Def Leppard, he's the guy that mixes our sound, and boy, the sound was incredible at this show, and it always will be.
Yeah, I bet. And you make a couple of good points there talking about grunge music, because I like some of it, like Alice in Chains, but I was not a huge fan. See, Alice in Chains kind of has a metal kind of element to what they do, but a lot of those bands I did not like for obvious reasons. Like I was thinking a lot of times, I miss all that kind of fun time music I grew up on. I don't want to be depressed. I don't want to be brought down. When I go to a show, I want to be entertained. I want to kind of be brought up.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's what I try to do in the songs I write, definitely. And as a keyboard player, it facilitates my ability to bring in a lot of different influences. Whether it's the whole prog influence from my background with Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and and Kansas. You're going to hear a lot of Kansas in my stuff. You're going to hear a lot of Queen. Every now and then you hear a little bit of Elton John kind of styling.
Yeah, I was getting ready to bring that up, because I was looking on your page again and saying you were influenced by all these great piano players, like everything from Led Zeppelin, the Beatles, Elton John, Deep Purple. We were talking about Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and then of course Rick Wakeman. He doesn't get a big mention often, but he's like one of the ultimate keyboard.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, I
would say probably the way I play is closer to Rick Wakeman than anyone else. I'm a huge Yes fan.
Yeah.
So that's my go-to music. That's my favorite. I still listen to it almost every day. And Kansas is very, very popular to me. Still, seems timeless to me.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so the Rick Wakeman, yeah, I'm glad you brought up.
And Rick Wakeman, I bring him up too because as much as people know him from Yes, are you aware that he played on some of those classic Black Sabbath albums?
Oh gosh, he's played on so many things. I mean,
yeah.
with David Bowie.
Yeah.
Just it goes on, the early stuff.
And he still put out great solo music, you know.
Yeah.
And so you got to give him credit for still doing what he does. And the other thing I was going to say, Greg, is bringing up the Seattle scene and when grunge was big. How did you feel of it? Because for I know most of the years when I was growing up, kind of the music capital was either L.A. or New York, and neither of those places are what they once were. And right now, it's either Vegas or even Nashville. A lot of the Asian rock stars are moving to Nashville or Vegas because both those places are known as Music City today. So I think you couldn't pick a better place to, because even here in Los Angeles, the music scene's not what it once was.
Right, absolutely. I think Las Vegas is a great place for it to be because we have the ability to draw people from all over the world and to keep rock alive in a really great way. So I'm very proud to not only represent Las Vegas with a brand new project like the Renaissance Rock Orchestra that has such a huge vision of not only continuing to create timeless classic rock quality music, you know, like Circus Life that sounds like Queen, A Song of Hope that sounds like Kansas, and My Love in Arms that has a bit of a little bit of a Van Halen meets Dream Theater feel to it. So Las Vegas is a great place for it to be, and we will continue to grow this into a monster in the city.
And there's another song I came across of yours today. It's called "To Be With You." Could you talk a little bit about that?
To Be With You. Wow, that's one of my favorite songs, and a little bit of a painful song for me to talk about. One of my bands in Seattle had two girl singers, and it was a band named Savannah.
Okay. And
the band name was decided on by Monique Giannetta. Monique was the red-haired singer in the band Savannah, and I joined that band and kind of helped give them some legs because I was a little bit of a known player up in Seattle at the time. And Monique and I always had a very special relationship. And we had a relationship back in the 80s.
Wow.
Then as things moved on in life, and I got married and sailed and got out of music for a while, a lot of things happened. But we... after I got off the sailboat and I was divorced from my wife, and I went to L.A. and did the whole L.A. thing.
Yeah.
Kind of Facebook and social media kind of rekindled our connection again, Monique and I.
Oh, wow.
And back in 2011, she was living in Tucson at the time. I had moved to Las Vegas, and we rekindled the relationship. And she was in many ways the love of my life. And
wow.
And just a brilliant singer. She had such a beautiful voice, but she passed away of cancer in 2015.
Well, you know, it's kind of interesting that I picked up on those two songs. I mean, this one song, "To Be With You," I just talked about, means so much to you. I mean, I could kind of just, in listening to that, I thought, like, this sounds like, this is like a page out of somebody's life.
Yeah, exactly what it is. It's the story of our life together, creating music in Seattle, and touches base on the grief and loss of her passing. And of course, writing music is always a cathartic experience, and that song was that to me. One of the neat things that I'm very grateful about with that whole experience and that song is I moved her up to Vegas, and I was starting to create Renaissance Rock Orchestra, and she was here to see the first record created and finished. And when I first started writing that song, Monique loved minor music, things that sounded sad.
Yeah.
And so I was writing this piece of piano music for her, and it was originally an instrumental, and I named it Monique in minor for her.
Wow.
And she absolutely loved the piece, and she heard it many times, and as the Renaissance Rock Orchestra grew, I knew that, and after her passing, I of course wanted to write something that was a little bit more of a memorial for her with that song. So I wrote the lyrics to it and recorded the song, and I changed the name to "Be With You," which is the main line in the chorus. But thank you so much for bringing up that song. And it reminds me, of course, will always remind me of Monique. It's a story of our relationship and our life together. It's kind of a neat thing. There's parts of that song that to me, when I wrote it, it felt a little Supertramp-ish.
Wow.
I know, Supertramp is really interesting because a lot of their songs are really up, really positive, but they have those moments of very introspective.
Of course.
Very introspective. And I would say the same thing of Circus Life, that as up and Queen as it is, it goes into those different sections like Bohemian Rhapsody does, where it's almost like 3 different songs in one.
Oh, yeah, I hear you.
Monique, To Be With You, what used to be called Monique and Minor, has a little bit of that feel to it too. Also.
Yeah, and see, I mean, I listen like typically to hard rock and metal, but I have an appreciation for stuff too, like Tom Petty and the Eagles, the Beatles. I'll tell you why, because it's all great songwriting.
It is all great.
And those are really songs that, again, people wrote from, a page of their life, so to speak. And
That's right,
and you can really, it's quite different than writing a song like I Want to Make Love in the Back of My Car. But, there's a place for that.
Let's do the horizontal bob. Yeah, it's funny that we have been talking here about To Be With You, which is on our last record, In Times of Olde, which you can hear on Spotify.
Okay.
And Circus Life, which is on the new record, A Song of Hope 2020, the COVID release.
Yeah.
Because Circus Life is also quite introspective, and it's also a page out of my life. I mean, in the video, you see pictures of me and my sister sitting at the piano.
Yeah. But it's a very visual video, and I think anybody who's a rock fan is going to dig really any of your stuff. And you were mentioning about the '90s when grunge was really in Seattle, was kind of the big music scene. Now, you weren't into that music, obviously, but what was it like for a guy from Seattle? All of a sudden, people are wanting to move where you've lived all your life to Seattle, and it's becoming the new, musical capital of the world.
Well, it was kind of weird for me because it had been my life, and I was one of the major players in that scene for so long. So it felt so odd to have such a genre that was so non-keyboard oriented take over the scene. So I felt very displaced. Very everything I was doing, and of course at the same time during that scene, a lot of the big clubs in Seattle, like the Aquarius, Pier 70, a lot of the rooms that we'd been doing a lot of cover shows in for years, and the national acts were playing, and that scene was changing and starting to be replaced by DJs. Everything, the whole world was changing. And so, I felt very alienated, very displaced, and it felt time for me to leave. It was just like no point for me to be here anymore. And I actually got into the reason I actually left Seattle was during that period of time I had started getting into the timber industry.
Oh, wow.
And that's what drew me to Phoenix, Arizona in the first place, because I did a big land deal, a 10,000 acre land deal with a vision to save the rainforest down in Belize.
Oh, wow.
And so the idea was, the mahogany trees are being cut, and of course the people that are trying to survive down there are slashing and burning, just to try to grow crops to eat. But the rainforest is going away. So the idea was to buy 10,000 acres of property and to log 300 trees and to build an ecotourism resort right on a river there. So I went down to Belize. I actually stayed in a Mayan Indian chief's hut. They killed a chicken for us. We had a big feast. It was an amazing thing. I went out into the forest every day, seeing jaguar tracks and snakes, with machetes.
Oh, wow.
Looking at it, and it was so crazy. It was like Raiders of the Lost Ark. I was out on my property wandering through this rainforest, which is very difficult. It's hot. It's humid. It's hard to get through there. It's really easy for a Mayan Indian chief who's like 4 foot something. A little bit more difficult for 6 foot tall Gregg, if you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah. I mean, you miss. Do you miss all that rain? I mean, you're trading like rain for humidity in Vegas.
That's right. Yeah. But as I was going through the rainforest, we came to a creek. We decided to follow the creek for a while because it's just a lot easier than trying to fight your way through the jungle. And as we were going up this creek, we started to see rocks and stones that were obviously man-made, and it turned into a wall. And we found Mayan Indian ruins on our property that had never been seen before, not even by this Mayan Indian chief. It's like, it was the most amazing, magical experience you could ever imagine. It was literally like right out of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I bet. And Greg, before I let you go, I want to ask you one final question about. I tell you, that guitar player you got that played with you the other night, Tony Elman. He's a great kind of great find. Yeah.
He's my neoclassical virtuoso for sure. I have two of the most amazing guitar players because they both handle different jobs, different tasks in this band with a lot of our material that has that neoclassical metal flavor.
Who's the other guy you got?
It's Christian Brady from Hell Yeah.
Oh, okay, wow.
Christian is just such a monster, and so on the last record, Christian recorded a couple different songs with us, which includes A Song of Hope, the title track.
Yeah.
So make sure you listen to Christian playing that, because he has this wonderful David Gilmour-ish style, just full of passion and bluesy melodic stuff. And Tony has the brilliant speed and shredding. Well, they're both just so good in such different ways.
Because I seen Tony.
Another song on A Song of Hope called The Universal Dance. That,
oh, wow. We'll check those out.
To hear Christian do his neoclassical thing on.
Yeah, we'll check all that out, because I seen Tony live a few years ago when he was playing in Juan Crocier's solo band, and he was playing all those great rat tunes that Warren DeMartini made famous.
Yeah, on Circus Life, we've talked about it a couple times. Circus Life is out on Spotify right now. You can hear it, and all your digital platforms. But on Circus Life, I wanted to have a very Brian May-ish guitar solo section, and so I wrote kind of a guitar thing that had those harmonies. The way Brian May used to record was single notes, right? He would record every single note in a chord structure singly, and he would multi-track that dozens and dozens of times. And that's what Tony did on Circus Life. So everybody go listen to Tony Alleman's brilliant guitar solo in Circus Life. This multi-tracked Brian May thing is beautiful.
Yeah, we will do that. If you could hold on just for a minute, Greg.
Absolutely.